Okay, cool. I'm going to talk about fighting health insurance with large language models. If this is not the talk that you're here for, that's totally cool. No worries if you want to bounce somewhere else. Okay, cool. So just throwing this out there, there's going to be some references to surgery, hospitals, medical insurance, being trans, broken bones, those sorts of things. If that's like not your vibe on a Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever, I don't know what day it is. If that's not your vibe on a Tuesday afternoon, totally get it. No worries if you want to bounce. Go for it. Live your best life. Okay. Also references to dog and pet insurance, if that's something that's rough for you too. So I'm Holden. My pronouns are she or her. I am on the Spark PMC, and I've been around a bunch of different companies, all kinds of fun, and I've written a bunch of books about Spark and a few about things that are not Spark. And in fact, one of my co-authors is in the audience today, Trevor. Okay, he doesn't want to, whatever, that's all right. Trevor's awesome, and we might update that book eventually, right? Okay. Solid maybe, solid maybe. You can follow me on almost all of the social media platforms, not all. I'm sure there's like a new one from last week that I'm not on yet. I do a lot of live streaming, including for this project. Most of the development has been live streamed, except for the parts that were like done kind of, how will I say this? At a coffee shop or like after 2 a.m. or like in an airport. I find the live streaming in the airport doesn't tend to work out all that well. Also, if you're interested in managing a bunch of Spark people, come and talk to me from my day job. We're trying to hire a manager for my team, and I would really love it if we hired someone who was cool. And I'm told that remote is okay, but I don't represent them, as they have reminded me to say, especially in this talk, right? So Netflix does not necessarily share the views that like health insurance companies are evil and should burn in fire, right? They have different views of their own. I am a dog mom, and that's cool. I love my dog. And this is actually an important part of this journey. So right, as I alluded to, I'm trans, queer, Canadian, so I've seen a different health system, right? And part of the broader leather community. Being trans means I've seen a lot of the American health system, and it is not good. I'm sure there's someone who would disagree with me. I haven't met them yet, except for those who work for insurance companies. And yeah, so we can do better. The other reason why I normally have this slide is to talk about like how it's important to have folks from different backgrounds present when we're building tools, so that we don't just like build the same sort of evil things we have, but now with AI, right? We don't want the AI to just be a laundering for our biases box. I would prefer it if the AI did cool things and fought back against the biases that we have in society. And so if you're looking at your team and it's all a bunch of bros that went to Stanford together, maybe like try and hire someone else too. So what is our problem? So our core problem is that health insurance in America denies medical care. A lot of denials. And so this is Anthem Blue Cross denials, for the individual marketplace, because there happens to be statistics reported about that. And 629,000 claims denied out of under 2.5 million claims submitted, right? And so that's a lot. And I'm willing to like buy the argument that some claims are submitted improperly, but I don't think it's 600,000, right? Like I think that most of us can agree that probably some of these denials are not accurate. And allegedly, some insurers are using AI to deny claims, and the ones that aren't are also allegedly just asking doctors to batch deny claims without looking at them. Allegedly, not proven in a court of law, but alleged and sued over. And so the other thing is, like, appealing denials is hard, right? Like, we know that we get a lot of denials, but a lot of people give up, right? Because people don't like dealing with bureaucracy, and frankly, it's depressing, right? So my personal motivation here comes from getting hit by a car in 2019 and breaking a whole bunch of my bones. This was while Trevor and I were working on a book together, and Trevor stepped up and like took the lead on the book. And thank you so much, Trevor, for taking over at that point. Really appreciate it. And the other one is like, I've had some surgeries from being trans because I chose that path, and super happy fun times. And in both of those situations, I got to deal with a lot of what I would call bullshit denials. The bones one was like after the fact denials, where they're like, hey, you don't actually need the physical therapy you got, so we don't want to pay for it. Whereas the trans-related ones were more like, hey, we don't want to pay for that, so like you can't go have that surgery. And in both cases, it was kind of like, well, you know, if I don't do these things, my life is going to be materially different, and not in a positive way, right? So I also want to shout out that our problem here is not computers, right? Computers were definitely a mistake, but our problem is a social problem, right? And we're going to slap some flex tape on it, and we're going to hope to God that this keeps working, right? And to be clear, we should probably fix the system. But I don't know about you, I'm not a US senator, so I can probably not fix the system. Honestly, even if I was a US senator, I don't think I could fix it, right? So we're just going to try and make things suck a tiny little bit less. We're going to use computers to do that. So how are we going to use our computers to do that? We're going to use an ML model to take our denials and produce appeals. So like we've got sequence A and we want sequence B. Is going to be super fun. The other thing that we need to do is we need to make it accessible, because the average person does not have Python on their computer and probably doesn't know how to run inference with a Hugging Face model, right? You say these things to normal people and they just kind of glaze over, or they ask a lot of questions, and it's probably not going to go super well. The other thing is we also kind of want to protect privacy. And this is because not only do I enjoy not being sued, one of my life goals, but I also think that this is important personally, that we should try and protect people's privacy. So if we're going to run hosted inference, we should do some things to try and protect their privacy. This is my personal thought of how to go about this. There are other ways you could try and use computers to fix this problem, like, say, robo-dialing all of the health insurance executives day and night, tracking them down, whatever. I'm not going to elaborate too much more. So if you agree with me that this is a way that we can go about solving this problem, how do we solve this problem? So we can grab a generic large language model, and it'll generate things, but maybe not very good things, right? Because they're not really specialized in this area. So we really want to find a way to specialize our models. To do that, we need training data. The problem is I have my own health insurance denials, but those are what we would call a biased sample, and also, thank God, not in the hundreds yet. So not exactly what I need. We also need a bunch of computers. Good thing, I happen to know a bunch of people with computers. And we need some software to stitch it all together. The even better news is I drink a lot of coffee, and so that's fine. We can solve all of these problems. So where do we get our training data? So the natural place is who has all of this data? The first thing is the insurance companies have all this data. I tried talking to them, and they did not know. Yeah, they told me whatever the business word of please go die in a fire is. So they don't want to share all of this information. In retrospect, telling them that my goal was to make them cry might not have helped. In retrospect, I should have pivoted that positioning later. So okay, not great. What else can we look for? We can look for things on the internet, because that's great. We all love Reddit for data. It turns out that some people do post health insurance denials on Reddit, but not a lot of them. Although if you ever want to be really depressed, you can type Reddit health insurance denial in, and you can be really sad. But we can get data from someone else, and it's not quite what we want. We can get data from independent medical review boards. Now, some of them have what I would describe as open licensing, and some of them have what would be described as no. Texas is in the no category, and California is in the open category. And Washington State is somewhere in between, in that I looked at it, there's a bunch of data, but then there's also a whole bunch of words, and I was like, ooh, I don't have enough money to pay a lawyer to tell me what these words mean. And unlike the startup bros, I don't want to just ask ChatGPT, so I'll go with California's data, because we're good. So California's independent medical review records are not quite what we want, right? Ideally, I would get denials and appeals, because that's what I want. And even more ideal, I get denials, appeals, and results. But in this case, we do get this sort of free text blob of hey, what was denied, what was the justification for appeal, and what was the final decision. And that's cool, it's better than nothing, and it's actually, we can start fine-tuning our model here. So one of the great things we can use LLMs for is saying like, hey, I have this data, it's in format A, I wish it was in format B. They're pretty good at that, so we can give them like a few denials and be like, okay, cool, now go and take these thousands of IMR records and turn them into denials for me. And it does pretty good. And we can do the same thing for appeals. And this is exciting because now I have a data set to train on. And we put it together with for loops. Alibissimo. Not just for loops, nested for loops. Yes, yes. And so this is in part because different models have different outputs, and you might want a scoring mechanism to tell when one model is doing poorly or the other. And so we'll nest our for loops and we'll do a whole bunch of different inference, and then we'll just write it all out to text files, and we'll deal with that problem later. Okay, cool. And you can see here we have this high quality function called check for bad, which more or less just looks and says hey, did this model just start outputting gibberish? If so, throw away the result and we'll try another one. And that is what I like to describe as a rule-based expert system, also known as pile of regular expressions. So fantastic, and we've got our rule-based expert system, and so it'll discard the sort of weird results that don't make any sense. So now we have a bunch of data. Fantastic, it's in the form we want, almost. It might not be great, and you do have to be careful about the licensing, but that's okay. There are some really cool models with very flexible licenses, and that's good enough. So now we need to fine-tune our model, right? Similarly, we want to pick a model where the license lets us do this. There are a bunch of models which are just yo, don't do healthcare stuff. And so I like to avoid those because see part 1 of not wanting to be sued. The other one is to make sure that it'll fit in memory. This is especially important to me because this project is running off of my credit card. And so I don't have the money to run a 450 billion parameter model indefinitely, right? Because renting GPUs is expensive, and doing a dynamic scale up, scale down takes a really long time, and people generally don't want to wait 3 minutes. Even though 3 minutes is better than forever, but people get bored. I mean, I get bored. I don't want to wait 3 minutes. So we structure our data in the correct way. We put together a giant pile of shell scripts, only the finest. Does a whole bunch of SSHing, copying data around, and it's fantastic. And we use a tool called Oxalotl that I'm almost certainly mispronouncing that will go ahead and take our giant pile of data and produce a model for us. And then we make a whole bunch of models. So the first version I made was called Appeal Alpaca. We're now up to Fight Health Insurance model version 0.5 because despite using Git for whatever reason, we seem to have reverted to IPython notebook naming conventions when it comes to models. So I am following industry best practices here, also known as whatever. So this is great. And if anyone happens to work for Mistral and is able to get me permission to use their latest model as a base, please give me a call. I tried messaging the people I know there, and they sent me back a sad face. So I'm thinking that path isn't going to work. But yeah, so we make our model. We use Oxalotl. Use Lambda Labs because I don't have giant GPUs all the time, unfortunately. Well, I certainly can't use my employer's ones because they would get a little bit annoyed because it's illegal. Yeah, anyway, so it's good, and we rent one for a few dollars, and it's fantastic. So our pile of shell scripts is run remote, setup.sh, and run.sh. And these are all about as good as they sound, which is to say, somehow they work. We also have to specify a configuration, this is our input model. This is kind of is it a Mistral derived model? Yes. And we say this is where our data is going to live, and please put my output data here, or sorry, output model here. And then we also add some random magic configs that if you don't add, it does not work. And the exact details why are fuzzy, but it's what it says in the docs. So just copy pasta that shit over, and you're great. You're much happier than I was when they were you can't drink coffee. This was a very sad time because I was not allowed to drink coffee for multiple days, which I don't know. I think breaking the bones was worth, but at the time I was really focused on the coffee. Probably because like how would we say this? The really good pain drugs had kicked in. So like I was not super aware my bones were broken. But I was very aware that I didn't have coffee. So how much does it cost to fine tune our model? About $112, give or take. The first 0.8 hours was not quite correct, but that was like when I was running it and I was like, oops, I screwed up. So this is great. $112, well within my like stupid shit budget. Fantastic. So now we need to serve our model, right? And this is the part where like I become more cost conscious. And this is because like serving lasts for a lot longer than training. So VLLM, super happy fun times. And I also happen to have some super sketchy ARM plus GPU combo machines that I acquired. And unfortunately, they didn't, we would say, work. Yeah, so, and to be clear, like, ARM GPUs are probably pretty fine, like the ARM plus GPU combos. It might be the ones that were acquired may not have passed, perhaps, all of the QA checks. Certainly, I did notice that there were some missing buttons on the board. So perhaps this is not necessarily about the ARM GPUs, but certainly mine were not a party. The other discovery that I had is that I cannot fit an RTX 3090 into a 2U server. Turns out that they're not designed to fit in servers. And this is like probably a method of price discrimination, right? Where we try and like sell more expensive things to fancy people that want things to fit in racks. But thankfully, I'm really cheap, so I just shoved a desktop at the bottom of this pile of servers. And occasionally it breaks, and then I email someone to go and reboot it because they don't have IPMI on desktops. And then like 5 minutes later, the website starts working again. Okay. Model serving, super happy fun times. Also, we can do it with Kubernetes, all kinds of fun. I did increase replicas from 1 to 2 after a few of those reboot instances. And I was like, maybe I should have a second one. But it's pretty cool. The other thing here is you'll note that I said, like, please use the AMD 64 machines. The ARM machines have not been going well for me. And here we specify our like totally legit co, which is the legal company name, Fight Health Insurance Model version 0.5. And we also like say like, hey, enforce eager, and this is important because if we don't have enough memory. And the other one is we also have to specify a fair amount of ephemeral storage, because if we don't, we run out of disk when it goes to go and download the model for serving. The other option, of course, would be to bake your model into the container image. I don't love it. I prefer doing this kind of weird dynamic fetch. I don't know, dealer's choice, right? Whatever. They both work. This one seemed to work slightly better. And we can buy 3090s for about $748.46, which is a lot of money, but is still less than paying like $2 an hour for like every hour until the end of the heat death of the universe, or until I get fired and don't have a credit card anymore. Either way, you know, this is cheaper. Also, here's my dog. He's awesome. Okay, now it's time to build a front end. Okay, so I chose Django because, frankly, I have not kept up with what we would describe as the world, and because LLMs do a pretty good job of generating Python code compared to asking LLMs to generate Scala code. In my personal experience, trying to get an LLM to generate Scala play code did not go well, and here is where we can use those questionably acquired ARM GPUs. No need to worry. And we get internet access. We do it in perhaps the most convoluted way possible, which is to say, I have an autonomous system number registered in Fremont, California, with 3 upstream providers and 1 switch that really should not be used in the manner that it's being used. But this is surprisingly important because of IPv6 peering disputes, which if anyone has strong opinions about, come find me later. And I can complain about Cogent Co. If you work at Cogent Co., please peer with Hurricane Electric. Okay, and now we're gonna do a demo, and we're gonna hope it doesn't crash, okay? Because, yeah, let's hope it works. Okay. I do also have a local running copy too, in case the remote version crashes. So here we can see that backend developers should not be allowed to write front-end code. And we can press this Generate Health Insurance Appeal button. Huzzah. Okay. So as we see here, we have some information which is not transferred to the server, specifically that my name is Holden Farts, and I live on 20th Street. These facts are not true, but they work well enough. All right. Okay. Now, if we had an actual denial handy, we could scan and OCR it automatically on the client side. But for the sake of life hopefully working, fingers crossed, we're going to not do that. Your request for prep has been denied as not medically necessary. Sincerely, EvilCo. Okay, EvilCo fax 1-425-555-55. Great. So we've got our generic health insurance denial from EvilCo, and then we're going to go down and we're going to press this try and remove name and address from text. And it replaces my name with patient name. Yay! Moderate privacy. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And then we go ahead and, just like a real person, we don't read any of these things, and we just check all of the boxes. Ooh, yes, okay. Oh, right, that's a bug, whatever. Ignore the red text, everything is fine. Okay, cool. So we press submit, and then it says like, okay, we use the model to say like, hey, what kind of denial was this? And what do we think the diagnosis was, and what was the procedure? So here, we didn't say it was high-risk homosexual behavior, but it inferred that because that's what PrEP is normally prescribed for. There's other things, but that's what it is. And that's not me making up the term of high-risk homosexual behavior. If anyone's offended by that, please take it up with the ICD-10 committee. I have feelings about that. So here we've got a whole bunch of different plan sources. We're going to select employer, private. And we're going to go ahead and say like, I'm not a robot. Submit. And here we say like, okay, cool. Like there's a bunch of different things that you could do if you wanted to. But also, once again, most people will probably not read that, and I suspect they will scroll down and press submit. But one of the options is like, hey, you seem to be from a state that participates in this consumer assistance program. You could ask them for advice, right? And that might actually be better advice than the computer. On the downside, a lot of those consumer assistance programs are woefully understaffed. So on the flip side, they might not be able to get back to you. And so here, we'll go ahead and we'll say submit. And then we get some really high quality code that once again shows that backend developers should not write front-end code. I really wanted a spinning wheel here, but for whatever reason, the spinning wheel kept breaking. So I just replaced it with some really large text. And now we see it starts to generate health insurance appeals. Ooh. And we will see, like, definitely some of these appeals have what I would describe as they're not perfect, right? Like, where is this bracket? I don't know. It's just there because like computer bot. But like it's not an unreasonable appeal necessarily, right? Here we see like, according to the CDC, PrEP is highly effective. And then if we scroll down, oh yeah, I respectfully request that EvilCo reconsider my request for PrEP coverage. I believe it's essential, and we generate a few other appeals actually. Part of this is because I checked use external models, so this uses both my own internal model and some external models. And then, yeah. So this is just gonna hang out there because there's a bug where this little loading thing never goes away. But we've got an appeal, and now we can go ahead and we can like say like, yeah, this one sounds great. Cool, and now we've got our draft appeal, and I don't remember if this button works. Oh, it worked, okay, cool. Fantastic. So here we go. And now we can make a PDF. Huzzah! It is terribly formatted because, as previously mentioned, backend developers shouldn't write front-end code. But like it's a PDF, and you can print it off, and you can submit this to your insurance company. And then hopefully, they will give you access to the medical care that you need. Often they will not, but a good number of appeals are actually successful in general. And I have had some people reach out and say it worked. I also had some people reach out and say it didn't work, and that was less exciting. But, you know, is better than nothing. America. Okay. Yeah, all kinds of fun. Okay. Great success. Great success. Now we go back. Oh, thank you. Okay. So how would we improve this, right? Like, this is like, it's something, and it works, and it is arguably better than nothing. I think it's better than nothing. But there's a bunch of things that I think I or someone needs to do to make this less terrible. One of which is right now, you can opt in to save your email address so I can follow up with you and ask you if it worked or not. And people are doing that, which is really exciting. Not everyone, of course, understandably. But one of the things that would be really great is to actually collect that feedback and then like use that to improve our model. We could use better models to generate the intermediate synthetic data that we're using for this training. And we could also do a better job of filtering out our bad generated data. And there's actually some really cool stuff from Hugging Face acquired a company where you can more easily give it to a human reviewer to look at a bunch of synthetic outputs and choose the best synthetic output. We could also use retrieval augmented generation. I do have like a proof of concept that hits the NIH.gov APIs and then immediately gets my IP addresses banned. So I need to fix that. So that works. But it is a work in progress, and I think using PubMed data here could be really useful. Okay. So that's all kinds of fun, right? We've got a whole bunch of wonderful repositories. So this is all open source. You can't like see the appeals that it generates for obvious privacy reasons. But if you're interested in like taking a look at this, the Totally Legit Co. org has all of the different repos. We've got the high quality front end written in Python. We've got a React interface that someone started writing and then gave up on. And I have a plan to totally maybe one day work on that. We also have this health insurance LLM. And I think this is the cool part, right? This is the part where they're all cool. They're all cool, sorry. This is the part that I get most excited about. And this is the part where we do the like taking the independent medical review data and producing the correct synthetic outputs and then training and iterating on it. I think this is really cool. And then there's some other things that, like, as you can see from the complete lack of commits, went approximately nowhere. There is the legacy repo, which has a bunch of broken code in it. So if anyone's like, oh man, I love Python code where none of the tests work, check it out. So that's really great. You can please go to fighthealthinsurance.com and use it and give me your feedback. I would really appreciate that. I hope you don't get health insurance denials, of course, but if you do, I would love to hear if it works for you. If you're like, oh man, I really want to see someone like swear at Python for several hours while forgetting like very simple things that she should remember, you can watch the videos where I built this thing, and there's this fine bit.ly link. It was painful, but it works, and I'm pretty stoked about that. And yeah, you can also like connect with me on the internet, LinkedIn, all of those things.
Thank you so much.